It's now time for Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire. It's the only daily boxing talk show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of boxing talk radio. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you're listening, I hope you're doing all right. And anybody on the East Coast, Northeast, I hope you're doing all right, man. We've been getting hammered with the snow. But I keep saying spring is it's almost here. It's almost here. That's all I can say. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant, located on beautiful St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com. Or give my man a call, 912-268-2328. 912-268-2328. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simon's for an authentic Italian meal. And today's show is also being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. And you can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to the show. Just go to barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. Find out why I'm so adamant about getting the story of Tom Molyneux told. This guy should be getting way more credit in not only in the history of boxing, but just American history, Black American history. I mean, this is a guy that's virtually forgotten, and you shouldn't. I mean, he's an important figure from our historical past. So make sure you get a copy of the book. Looking to get a couple of copies? Want to give a few away for gifts? Well, don't worry about it. Just drop me an email, billy@talkinboxing, TALKINBOXING.com, and I'll hook you up. And if you're just looking to get a signed copy, just click the book on the website, billycboxing.com. Coming up a little bit later, we got episode 2 of Billy C's Magic Boxing Machine. I think I got it right. And this episode will feature a dream matchup between former world heavyweight champions and former Hall of Famers, or current boxing Hall of Famers. Puts Jack Dempsey up against Evander Holyfield. Now, this was a request by one of you guys. So we'll be getting to that a little bit later. Sal and Dax and Alex and myself will give you all we can give on that fight. We got a bunch of emails to catch up on with from yesterday, as well as some new ones. So we're going to get rolling with that. But first, I'll tell you what, this PED scandal, it's becoming a scandal for Canelo Alvarez. And a lot of opinions now are starting to come out with the thought that Canelo has basically been a cheater for a while, and that this isn't an isolated incident. As a matter of fact, the news that came out that he tested positive for the performance-enhancing drug, which Team Canelo claims was in tainted beef that they ate in Mexico. The truth of the matter was, it was brought out yesterday that he failed 2 tests leading up to him moving his training camp from Mexico to the United States. And Abel Sanchez, Triple G's trainer, is steaming over it. And he made some statements yesterday that we're going to get to in a second. But first, we got to get to my main man, Sal Rocky Senecola. Sal, I hope you're doing okay today. Question: do you think Canelo has been kind of stretching the rules a bit? I mean, it came out yesterday that this test that he failed was actually 2 tests that he failed. I mean, what do you think?
I don't know what to think. I'm a little surprised, shocked, and I can't believe it. It's incredible. But, as I often said, Bill, the media stimulates the news. It doesn't just report it. And henceforth, here we are 24 hours later, and there's all kinds of rhetoric and all kinds of valid points being made and trying to investigate this thing and see how deep and how far back it may have gone. And the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, and we'll see. I'd hate to think that he's been doing things like this all along under the radar, but you never know. You never know. And I'll tell you what, if that was the case and is the case, and I'm not suggesting it has been the case.
Hey, don't call me Shirley, buddy.
Shirley, hey, listen, I'll call you Billy. But the bottom line is, Bill, it's going to be something if it is true. And now that he's not going to be using any substance, I'm just suggesting. I'm not saying it is. I don't have no clue. I think it would get into his own psyche, because if you're doing something like that, you almost become dependent on a suggested value that, well, this has helped me. This has gone here. This has gone there. And then if you stop taking it, it's like, oh, boy, I'm on my own again or whatever. You don't know. I don't know. But the bottom line is, I'd hate to think it's true. And let's see what happens in the investigation and how deep they want to push and see. But the bottom line is, I think it's caught well enough in advance, so we should see 2 natural fighters in the ring on May the 5th.
Well, it's funny you say the psyche part, because it was a topic I talked to Larry Hazard about yesterday. And I said, and I used an example of, when they test drugs, sometimes they'll have, X amount of people taking the real drug and the other people taking, like a sugar pill or something, and they're trying to get the results. And sometimes the people taking the fake stuff are acting like they're getting benefits from it, So a lot of it is mental. And I know there's a lot of people that watch and listen to this show that are well more versed in performance-enhancing drugs than I am. And I purposely kind of stay out of it because I don't want to say the wrong thing. You know what the real reason is, Sal? I can't say any of the names of the drugs. I mean, I have a hard enough time saying my and your name, let alone the names of these drugs.
In my era, and I told you a story one time that we do have to keep confidential about. There was a certain trainer that would give his fighters a weekly shot of B12 for energy. And that's all I'm going to say, really. I don't know if I should say much more. But the bottom line is, even with B12 as energy, that, if you believe it, it's going to be like a placebo. If you think you're going to get a shot of B12 and it's going to help you with energy, you might say, hey, well, I got a little shot of B12. It's completely natural. Your doctor can give it to you. In fact, I remember I went to my lifelong, this guy, I love this guy, Dr. Frank Ferraro out of Rivervale, New Jersey. He's been my lifelong Dr. Welby, if you will, kind of doctor. Town doctor, was great on any level, and had a great family. Well, he suggested one time that he would give me a B12 shot, maybe 24 hours before a fight. And he did, and as it did, it was like a placebo to me. I felt, well, that's pretty good. Whether it works or not, it really doesn't. Whatever you believe, your mind is what you need. If you're confident you're going to go into the ring and you're going to do your job, you don't need anything else. I tried the B12 one time, 2 times maybe, and it was what it was. I believed it was going to work. It worked. I believe anything I did legally with nutritional supplements and ergogenic aids, as they call them, even a little caffeine before a fight, never hurt. And those were things that were legal, and it was there for you. Other things back then, I think in the days when I was fighting, were the known steroids like Decadurabolin, Anabol. These were things that athletes were using in gyms. And, But very rarely would you see the lighter weights having to use these because lightweights have to lose weight and they tear it off their bodies.
Well, that's what they're using now. A lot of these things are to help them cut weight and
I don't know about
energy.
That.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's the industry has become. But let me give. We got a lot of stuff to cover here, and I got one of the. Abel Sanchez, Triple G's trainer, he's pissed. He's pissed, and he said, and I quote, and to get back to my original question, I almost lost my whole train of thought. The question now is people are going to start thinking that Canelo's been cheating for forever, and if you go back to Antonio Margarito, when he was caught just prior to going into the ring against Sugar Shane Mosley with cement in his gloves, all of a sudden the assumption was that he's been cheating forever, and it basically has haunted that guy to this day. So, it's hard to shake that when you're caught. People are going to make that assumption that you're a cheater. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Like right. I don't want to quote Deontay Wilder, but that's what he was referring to Luis Ortiz as leading up to their fight. But here's a quote from Abel Sanchez, and it's not that, I like or dislike Abel Sanchez, but I will say this. Now, I had the luxury of meeting Abel Sanchez in Chicago a couple of times. He's a really nice guy. And the point I'm making here is that he very rarely says things. You hear a lot of rhetoric out of Freddie Roach's mouth and, of course, Bob Arum. And, there's guys that are synonymous to shooting their mouth off about things. That guy Billy C. Yeah, I was just gonna say that guy Billy C. never shuts up. But no. But
it's out of passion.
When Abel Sanchez says something, sometimes I have a tendency to really listen. And I have some quotes for you. He says certain commissions in this game are very lenient towards certain fighters. He says Nevada has been lenient towards Alvarez, and he's still upset over what he felt was a hand wrapping technique called stacking, which is supposed to be illegal. And he questioned when they were doing that to Alvarez prior to their fight and back in September, and he says, well, they put gauze on his hand and put one layer of gauze on the hand. Then they put the tape on top of the gauze. Sanchez said to them at that point, I caught and said, whoa, what are you doing? That's illegal. You can't do that. And the Nevada inspector looked and said, yeah, he can do that. He says it's called stacking. This is Abel Sanchez says it's called stacking. It's illegal, and you can't do that. It creates a cast. We kept going back and forth to the point where the inspector threatened to throw Abel Sanchez out of the room. He kind of the fight went on or whatever. And he said that Alvarez has been allowed to do that every other time. Now the argument for Nevada is that they allow that, even though it's not in their rules specifically, but they have allowed it for a very long time. Sanchez also went on to mention how there's always controversial decisions, and one he pointed to was C.J. Ross scored Alvarez Floyd Mayweather a draw, even though the other judges scored it 9-3 and 8-4 rounds, that is, in favor of Mayweather. And quite honestly, I don't know how anybody could have scored that a draw. I mean, Mayweather beat Alvarez that day. He says, then, of course, the Adelaide Bird fight with Triple G and Alvarez scores the fight 10 rounds to 2 in favor of Canelo Alvarez. Bob Bennett didn't do anything about it. Abel goes on to say, my biggest concern is that it doesn't, this issue, and he's talking about the clenbuterol testing positive not once but twice, prompting this whole thing. Bennett says that he's going to do a full investigation. Sanchez says, my biggest concern is that it doesn't get brushed under the carpet. It truly is and gets investigated by the experts. He says, I'm not one, but I want it to be looked into thoroughly, as they would if it were Triple G who tested positive or any other fighter, not Canelo. He says it just seems that there are certain commissions in boxing that are lenient towards certain fighters. Texas is being one of them, and Nevada is another when it comes to Alvarez. Certain fighters get relaxed rules. He says when everyone else has to follow a rule, these guys get relaxed rules. He says this time it's a big enough event that the commission needs to seriously investigate everything that's happened in the past. I know he's never tested positive before this, but this stuff, clenbuterol, is not something you start using out of a whim. People who are cheaters, and if he is one, I'm not saying that he is, it's not the beef, because it could be the meat, but let's make this investigation go deep, because you don't just start all of a sudden using that type of drug. Now, I think he's got a legitimate case here, Sal. I mean, we want an even playing field. I could see, and I'm not suggesting that Canelo is a cheater, but I could see the pressure on Canelo, that a lot of it he put on himself, that he has to win this fight. And when a fighter is against the wall like that, or any athlete, you can see where they may consider doing something to help them achieve that. I mean, could you see that?
That's hard, Bill. Fighters are a rare breed, needless to say, because they really, fighters have a lot of confidence. They really, that I know, and I'm speaking from my own perspective, they really feel they're going in the ring with what God gave them and what the training regimen allowed them to benefit from. And there are those that may look for a competitive edge, but like outside of anything illegal, it's seldom that you'll see them investigate, hey, I got to get a trainer, he's got to give me this, you got to give me that. Now, it may be suggested by some trainers. That might be high-tech kind of designer kind of supplements that might be beneficial short term on that level for a competitive edge. Would a fighter decide to take that if he knew it was illegal, or if he knew it was could he play dumb and just say, hey, I was taking vitamin supplements? I don't know. It's a big thing, and some trainers, I will tell you this, some trainers may suggest to their fighters that, hey, this is a vitamin supplement. It comes from a rare place or whatever the heck. Here, you got to take this. Try this. It'll help you with energy or help your muscles grow. It's a protein supplement. You don't know. And I will tell you this, because I do know this for a fact. There were some world-class trainers back in the old day that would give some fighters who could afford to put on weight or do something else some kind of supplement, suggesting, hey, take this. This is good for you. Take this. It's a vitamin supplement. I get it from a special sports doctor, something like that. And it was something other than what it was, because the fighter might have not even known what he was taking other than a vitamin supplement.
Hold that thought, Sal. Hold that thought, brother. Okay. We got to take a break, and hold that thought, because I want to pick up on that in about 2 minutes.
Billy C. will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
You save a lot of money.
It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
You know, similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com. That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
You know, that's what Antonio Margarito tried to do, but with the steroid use today, and it's a continuing thing. It's almost like a designer drug because, you know, once they find out something is a performance-enhancing drug, by the time it gets put on the ban list, you know, they figured out a way to do something else that's not on the ban list. So it's a tough industry to police. I would think that there would constantly be new things, but I think that it has to become a priority, that they have to stay up on this, don't you think?
Oh, they do, because you know what? First of all, you know, you heard about, or you used to hear about long-term effects of some of these anabolic steroids, or what they could do to the human body over time or later in life. And you know, there's trade-offs. Like I said, when you're a young buck fighter, you're invincible. Nothing's going to happen to you. And you know, it doesn't happen to me. It's not going to happen to you. You know, it is what it is. And you don't see 30 years down the road. You're looking at the title. You're looking at the golden coin right there in front of you right now, and for the next couple of years. But the bottom line is, you know, and usually these things can be introduced or passed on, the benefits of them, and many times, and I will tell you this, I had the privilege and the fortune to be entertained for hours on end. You know, Richie Giacchetti was my manager for a long time, and I love the guy. And we used to talk, and we used to have great talks. And then we were in Atlantic City. How many times we'd get at a table with Johnny Boz or someone here, and we'd all talk, and I just shut up and listen, because the story that these guys would tell about who's doing this and who's doing that in a fight game. I mean, it was a plethora of knowledge and stuff I'm privy to, and I'm like, wow. You know, I don't want to hear too much, guys. I'm gonna go home. I gotta get up and run. Right. You know, it was amazing. And you'd be surprised what used to go on in the 80s or in the 70s that was not detected early on.
No,
I go on and on. I shared some things with you, and there's things I will never say on air.
I know we can't.
We
can go on, and Johnny Boz is a great guy. I just think that I'm with Abel Sanchez in this case. I don't think they should shovel it under the table. And I say, if I'm Team Triple G. I say forget Canelo. I think that boxing and the participants in boxing, the fighters need to make a stand. And the best way to do it is say forget it. The fight's off. And if I'm Tim Loftier and Team Triple G, I have a willing dance partner right now that'll step in and fight for Triple G. Fight Triple G for Canelo that the public will want to see. And his name is Daniel Jacobs. Give Daniel Jacobs a rematch, Triple G. Forget Canelo. Make a statement for the sport of boxing that says we will not tolerate a cheater, especially guys that are up on the podium saying how much they are against cheaters. And it would be the same thing if all of a sudden Triple G tests positive for something and, he's complaining. So in this case, it's Canelo. And, I got news for you. Canelo looks like listen, it's easy for me to see, and this is just my opinion, when the report came out that Canelo, tested positive, I was not shocked because I see it in this guy. His build and the fact that, a guy that's so chiseled like he is and then runs out of gas the way he does, those are signs. But make a statement, Team Triple G. Tell him you don't want to fight.
You're right, because those are some signs.
No, yeah, tell him you don't want to fight him and go fight Daniel Jacobs. Forget Canelo. Make a statement that boxing doesn't want cheaters, and I say one strike and you're out. Forget this BS where they get a couple of strikes. One strike, you're out. It's the same thing. You tighten up the repercussions, the penalties that somebody has to go through, and then they think twice. If you didn't run the risk of spending life in jail, people would be killing each other like nothing. So anyway. That's, obviously different than performance-enhancing drugs.
Maybe another level up.
It's a little different.
Hey, I got the point,
Yeah.
But like I said, the prize has to be worth the price.
Speaking
if
of
you're
cheating,
do something to attain a prize that's not that's not legal, and that you think is going to help you get the prize, you got to be willing to pay the price if you're caught.
Exactly. Speaking of cheaters, Team Ortiz is really they don't want to not give Deontay Wilder credit because let's face it, Wilder knocked out Ortiz, so it's hard to cry about judges and everything else. But they are mentioning that they thought they were winning and they're shocked that they were losing on the scorecards. Most people did, but the thing that they're really pointing out is the start of the 8th round, and they feel that Deontay Wilder got some extra time to recover. Now, he did. He did get extra time to recover.
I was going to say, Billy, how they explain themselves out of that one? Because I saw that. I said,
well, here's the reason.
Paulie Malignaggi couldn't even believe it. He said, wait a minute, this isn't right.
Let me explain why, okay? Because it's New York State that did it. New York State has this doctor thing where they are going way. Now, remember, Mago Abdulzamov, that whole situation triggered a procedure from New York State Athletic Commission where they have a doctor in each corner, and then a backup one. I think there's at least 3, and I might be wrong. There may be 4 doctors that are required ringside for fights in New York State now, and they do that after a beating or a knockdown. They let the corner do their work, and then prior to the official start of the round, they inspect the fighter, ask a couple of questions.
Perfect explanation.
And that's what New York State does. So, there's been allegations of, nod and wink, slow it down, blah, blah, blah. No. It's New York State. If you want to blame anybody, blame New York State because they're the ones that did it. 2 other things I want to cover real quickly. And then get into some emails that I want to try to get done before we do our Billy C's Magic Boxing machine. A fight this weekend, Mikey Garcia is taking on Sergey Lipidets. And, Lipidets has the IBF junior welterweight championship, and Mikey Garcia is going for that. It's a shame, Sal. And I'll tell you this, Mikey Garcia is a pound-for-pound fighter. He clearly took the easier opponent in this particular fight. And you could make the argument that, he got the money he wanted, he got the network he wanted to fight on, and he's getting the lesser opponent. It is so out of character for Mikey Garcia. And the result is that there's not much excitement about this fight. Normally, I can't wait to watch Mikey Garcia fight.
I know.
And the truth of the matter is that I don't even see. I mean, no disrespect to Lipinets, because he is a world title holder. But this guy doesn't stand a chance against Mikey Garcia. Last quotes that they had, Mikey Garcia says, everything depends on my opponent. If I find there's an opportunity to go for a knockout, I'm gonna. If it goes 12 rounds, then that's fine. He's a tough fighter, and I expect him to be tough. I'm just going to do whatever it takes to win. If the opportunity's there, I'm going to go for the knockout. If not, I will go 12 rounds. Lipinets says, I'm ready to go. I'm not going to let anything get in the way. I'm going to come out victorious on Saturday. I feel great. It doesn't matter if I'm an underdog or not. I'm ready to prove to everybody that they're wrong. I want to show everybody that I'm the one they should be looking at. I'm the champion. Sal, I got less than a minute, but what else is he supposed to say?
That's exactly what he's supposed to say. That's well scripted.
Right.
I mean, he can't say anything else different. I mean, you don't just offer condolences to yourself that, hey, well, I'm going to do the best I can, and if I come up short, hey, it doesn't matter. No, you got to speak of your assets. You got to speak of what you're going to do. You got to speak of you being the one out there to go out there and win.
Yeah, it's a shame, and what I'm saying is a shame is the fact that fighters, you had said it to me off air about Regis Progress saying, hey, Mayweather is gone, so now let's make boxing exciting again. Let's basically fight. And which I agree with. You and I have said that many times.
You know what he said, his quote? He said, let's bring the savagery back to boxing. And what it basically is. Hey, look at the MMA popularity, because it could be brutal. It could be, and there's nothing left to the judge's card, Well, when they made savagery, he meant the relentless style of like a Roberto Duran, or like win at all costs and be relentless. That's exactly what we need.
Well, I mean, the fans voiced their opinion when they were booing Ortiz and Wilder when they weren't, going after each other with reckless abandon. And that's what fans want to see. But anyway, my point here with Mikey Garcia is he could have gotten even more money and gotten a bigger fight. To me, he's kind of getting a payday here. And some people could justify that, especially Team Garcia. But I think it's a step backward for Mikey. This is a guy who's been, kind of included in some big conversations for big fights, and he ends up with Sergey Lipinets. But anyway, listen, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, I got one more bit of news. Then we're going to start chipping away at all these emails. We got a ton of them. So don't forget, coming up at 9, Billy C's Magic Boxing Machine. Episode 2. Don't miss that one.
Billy C will be right back.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
Similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
This is important news for women using birth control medications and devices. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with a pseudotumor after using one of these birth control drugs or devices, you may be eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Contact the law firm of Davis & Crump right now if you or a loved one have used one of these birth control medications or devices and were diagnosed with a pseudotumor to see if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call now. Operators are standing by.
Hologram USA presents a proposal to all investors. Hologram USA is an innovative three-dimensional patented technology that shifted the paradigm in media technology. Our patented hologram technology that brought you Tupac and Coachella, Whitney Houston, Billie Holiday, and many more is integrating live performances to bring your favorite past and present entertainers beyond your imagination. Invest in the patented technology before the banks scoop up all the stock. Invest in Hologram USA today. Hologram USA Flagship Theater, located on Hollywood Boulevard's Walk of Fame, is the first of many to come. Call now to be part of the explosive growth. Pick up the phone. Dial the number on your screen now. Invest in Hologram USA today. Call the number on your screen right now to learn about this investment opportunity.
Call 800-624-1673. 800-624-1673.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C., the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C., damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
Undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And speaking of us, I'm here with my man Sal Rocky Senecola. And Sal, just before I went to break, I had one more little bit of news I wanted to talk about. And this is coming from Tyson Fury. You know, listen, I was a big fan of Tyson Fury. I really was. And, you know, he went off the deep end, whatever the case is. Now he's wants to get back in the mix. But my problem with him is that, and really it's not just him, it's with anyone. I feel that you know, even though he was a champion, he's undefeated, and et cetera, he was out of the sport. He needs to fight a fight before he gets a fast track to a big money fight. And he has this thought that he doesn't need to. He said after this fight, after Deontay Wilder had his signature fight this past weekend against Luis Ortiz, he says that, referring to Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury said, he's made for me. Whatever happens in his career, whether he gets knocked out in his next fight, I want to fight him because we got unfinished business. When I get in the ring, I'll really give him a good hiding. He's a good puncher, and he's got to punch his chance all the way through until the end of the fight. But I believe I've got the best boxing skills in the division, and I'll give him a boxing lesson, and then I'll stop him, all 15 stone of him. You know, it's like the boy who cried wolf. You know, Tyson Fury's getting to the point where you don't even listen to what he says anymore, Sal.
Well, here's the bottom line. He doesn't really see or feel his significance and his contendership in the heavyweight division at this time because he hasn't earned it. He's been out. He's been idle. And guess what? He wants to jump on the fast track train to get back to the top. And it's not that easy. You've
wants-
got to do it with baby steps, and that's what he should be focusing on, not taking on and dismantling Deontay Wilder, who I think will give big Tyson Fury a lesson on how to fall from being up there to the canvas. But that's neither here or there. Tyson Fury's got to pull the reins back. Look at what he's got to do. He's got to sit with some consultants and a management team to say, hey, look, we're going to go back there. We're going to get in the ring. We're going to prove ourselves. We're going to take on this opponent, and we're going to work our way back up with 2 or 3 fights until we're back in contention.
Right. You know, one thing I want to say about Deontay Wilder and something that happens with these monster guys, and not that he's a monster guy. I mean, height-wise, 6'7", and something that Tyson Fury went through and something that the Klitschko brothers went through. Because you're so much bigger than your opponents, and a good example was the difference in size between Luis Ortiz and Deontay Wilder on Saturday night. Luis Ortiz, a big man at 6'4", but Deontay Wilder still had a 3-inch height advantage and I think a 5-inch reach advantage. You become proficient fighting guys that are smaller than you. You deliver your punches differently. Now, you know, with that said, I'm sticking by my thought about Deontay Wilder. He really, you know, he's a wild man in there. He doesn't possess any technical skills. In my opinion.
Unpredictable.
But what the one thing that he's going to have to learn pretty quickly is how to fight guys his own size. Something that he hasn't done yet. He hasn't been in there with a 6'7" guy. Tyson Fury's 6'7". He hasn't been in there with a guy that's, you know, where, you know, you're looking the stare down, your nose to nose, you know, and it took the Klitschkos a while to get proficient fighting guys the same size. The heavyweight division is a wild division because you could have a guy that's 220 pounds that's 6 foot tall, and then you could have a guy that's like Deontay Wilder who weighed slightly under 215 pounds and he's 6'7". You know, so. You know, it's something that they have to learn, and it took the Klitschkos a while. They finally mastered it, being able to fight, you know, guys the same size and smaller guys. But anyway, let's get some emails out of the way.
Right.
Yeah, no, I tell you what, it seems easier said than done. It's hard. You know, I remember watching the Klitschkos, and they had become that when they were delivering punches, they were throwing their punches downward, and they had to because their opponents were that much smaller. When they started fighting guys the same size, it took them several fights before they would deliver a punch the way I would call normal, you know. So we'll see. But anyway, we're going to start off with the emails that we didn't get to yesterday. So again, if there's an email that we don't get to today from today's bag, we will get to them tomorrow. But first and foremost, this one's from Greg. He says, I'm a huge Wilder fan, but I'm not writing this email to gloat. I'm disappointed in the outcome of the final round. They both got hurt and started to hold a bit. I'm sorry, he says hold and hit. Wilder hit Ortiz with a hard right hand rabbit punch to the back of the head. He followed it up with another hard right punch to the back of the head. Then he threw Ortiz to the ropes. The ropes look soft, but they're not. It was a 250-pound guy going flying into the ropes, and they supported him when the ropes are hard. Watch Ortiz as he rolls over. He has a glove and a knee on the mat, just like a guy who takes an 8 count. He was in this position because he was stunned, either from the 2 rabbit punches or hitting the ropes and the canvas after being thrown down. He looked at his corner, I think, because he thought that the ref ruled it a knockdown. You know, I thought, I'm going to stop from this email for a second, because I thought the same exact thing, Sal. I thought that the way he was taking a knee and looking up at the referee, that he thought it was a knockdown and was gathering his senses. Because if you recall, his corner had said to him after he was hurt previously in that fight to stay down for a full 8 count, to rejuvenate. Don't be so quick to get up. And I saw the same thing. And the referee even said to him, hey, it's not a knockdown. Get ready to fight, you know. But anyway, he says instead of asking if he was okay, the ref said get up, which he did. He's right. He says, I think this is where the language barrier hurt Ortiz, since he was shook up He should have told him he was hurt, or the referee should have asked him if he was okay, since he was thrown down and hit twice behind the head. He just told Ortiz to get up, and Wilder jumped on him because he was still hurt. Every other time Wilder jumped on Ortiz, he was ready, except this time. Wilder had been cautious up to that point, but I think he saw Ortiz wasn't right and went after the KO. Wilder's one of my favorite fighters. I think he knocks AJ and Tyson Fury and Povetkin all out, but fair is fair, and I think he took advantage of it, and I feel bad for Ortiz, but I respect him and wish the win was more clean. Listen, if you're going to point to, and I appreciate the email, Greg, and I also really appreciate your concern that your guy might not have won on the up and up, but let me tell you something. Deontay Wilder's job is to fight and win the fight. It's not his job if he mistakenly hit Ortiz behind the head or whether it was intentional. It's the referee's job to say something, right, Sal? I mean, Ortiz is
100% correct.
Yeah, Ortiz is going in for the kill. It's not his job to make sure his opponent is right. It's not his job to make sure that everything's on the up and up. That's what the referee is doing. And I do believe that exactly what Abel Sanchez said, that there are fighters that get special treatment in fights, and maybe this was a case with the referee. What do you think?
It's not the fighter's fault. The fighter goes out there. He's got one thing in mind. He's going to dismantle and destroy his opponent. And however he does it, as you suggested, it is 100% true. It's the referee's decision to say, hey, you can't do that. I'm going to give you a point against you, or I'm going to take a point away, or whatever. It's going to happen if it's something that's repeated. You have the warnings. You have everything else. Now, it's the referee's job to decide what's a knockdown. It's the referee's job to decide what was an illegal punch, and that's them doing their business that they're trained and experienced enough to do when they get into a world title fight. You cannot blame the fighters, because the fighters, like I said, they're going for a victory, and if they're going to be relentless and just like a caged animal, I hate to use that analogy, and just get out there and flail away and destroy, seek and destroy, that's the mindset. That's the pit bull mentality of a fighter, especially when they have somebody in trouble. One of the great finishers of all time was Sugar Ray Leonard. I mean, I love the way he would get somebody hurt. He'd jump all over you. There'd be punches flying and flailing from every angle till you dropped. And, there's a lot of cases of big punchers or big boxers out there that just put it all together, and they were hitting you. And if your body's moving in here and they accidentally hit you behind the head because one punch led you there, and, it's a combination. Boxing is not... It's not checkers. It's not jacks. It's a rough sport.
There's no doubt. And the fighter's job is to win, not referee.
That's it. But not to worry about.
And that's like other fighters that the fans get all critical of because of the judge. How many times have we seen a fighter get attacked on social media recently when the judge scores it terribly? It's not the fighter's fault. The fighter's just doing a job. They're not scoring. They're not scoring the fight. Blame the judge. The judge has to be held accountable, not the fighter. But anyway, another email. This is from my man Jeff from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He says, "Hey Billy, see the Wilder-Ortiz fight started slowly, but it was great fun, and it was very exciting in the end. Wilder showed heart and a willingness to go for broke when recognizing that his opponent was hurt. I believe he would have landed the right much earlier had he stuck the jab rather than pawing with it like he was. But I'll write that off as dealing with a talented southpaw. Yeah, that's my opinion too.
Bill, I'll tell you what, you were right on saying the same thing.
Yeah,
and I really feel in my heart of hearts that was really Deontay Wilder's pressing and feeling and getting his distance and range with that pawing left jab. And it was because he was fighting a talented southpaw.
Yep. He says, I'm so disappointed in Wilder's comments regarding Eddie Hearn. If he had said all promoters take advantage of fighters, he might have had some points to listen to. But in bringing race into his comment, all he did was demonstrate his deep-seated racist feelings. You know what? Before I read on, I thought that was the stupidest comment that Deontay Wilder said, and I agree here with
I didn't
Jeff.
hear it. I probably missed that.
Hey, he said along the lines of the white man's taking advantage of the black man, taking all of AJ's money. He was referring to Hearn mistreating Anthony Joshua.
Okay.
When really he should look at all the hands in his own pockets. But anyway, he says Hearn, like him or not, has maneuvered Anthony Joshua into huge multi-million-dollar paydays, 10 times that of what Wilder's promoters have brought to him. He says he's only interested in finding out who is the best, but insists on a 50-50 split when the highest he's made is $1 million in his most recent fight. Well, he did finally break $2 million on the fight Saturday. He says he cares about the money, and he knows he's not going to get a 50-50 split, maybe for the rematch should he win, but not in the first meeting. Disappointing and completely unsubstantiated claims. Watch out, Wilder, your jealousy is showing. Thanks for the email, Jeff. To tell you the truth, his win, and I'm one to also recognize that Luis Ortiz is probably 48 instead of 38, but I give Deontay Wilder the credit for beating him. It clearly was the best opponent that, Deontay Wilder has faced. Granted, it took 40 fights for him to fight a real opponent, which is, in my opinion, unacceptable in professional boxing, but be as it may, he proved it on Saturday night. What does that mean money-wise? No, I do not think that he deserves a 50-50 split against Anthony Joshua. However, I do believe he deserves a 60-40 split. It is what it is. Maybe they can work out a deal where it's not split percentages, and he picks up the U.S. television rights like they had offered and gets a flat fee and goes and fights AJ over in England, and he'll be in a position to make a ton of money if he negotiates the U.S. television rights correctly, especially if that fight is a pay-per-view, which I'm sure it would be.
I think he should get a 50-50 split if he goes to England, and if they come here, I think then it could be maybe 60-40 or so. But I'm telling you one thing right now, Deontay Wilder's stock rose tremendously.
Not 50,
tenfold.
Not 50%.
But you know what? He's got twice as many fights as Anthony Joshua too. I'm not going to debate the issue. I'm just saying I could be an advocate of declaring why I think. First of all, this is a fight that everyone wants to see. They're everyone that wants to see this.
We all want to see it, but
it's going to take both dance partners to get in the ring to do it.
You're right.
So why not give it a 50-50?
I don't think it's the fighters. They both seem to want to fight. It's first of all, because AJ could make $20 million fighting you or me in England. So that's value. Deontay can't. Deontay can't. He made $2 million fighting the best guy he's ever faced. And that was this past weekend. Now let's see at the next fight. How much is he going to make? Who else out there, aside from Anthony Joshua, can Deontay Wilder make more than $2 million against? There's nobody.
Got a point there.
There's nobody.
And that's true.
And please, Sal, don't say a statement like, "Wow, Deontay's got twice as many fights." You can't say it because you look at the.
I'm being a devil's advocate.
No, but the point is that you can't look at those fighters. You can't look at his resume. It's a joke, his resume. And I'm not suggesting that Anthony Joshua, all 20 of his were Klitschko's fighters. No, but the truth of the matter was that he definitely did fight harder opposition quicker than Deontay. Deontay's been a pro 5 years longer than Anthony Joshua, and still just made $2 million just once, and he's pounding his chest saying he's the best out there, and he just crossed over the 2 million threshold. And I can't believe I'm even using the money as an example, because that's my biggest pet peeve. The big fight between Charlo and Daniel Jacobs under the Barclays Center. I'm making M's. Daniel Jacobs is saying, meaning I'm making millions. What are you making? And he says, how do you know I'm not making M's, Charlo? He says, I know you're not making M's. And I'm saying, what? Oh, who's eating M&M's? What are they talking about? Why are they eating M&M's? Who's eating Reese's Pieces? Give him an ice cream. I was like, forget it. These guys put all the value.
Have a PED.
They put the wrong stuff into value. They value the wrong stuff. Just fight. This next one was left over from yesterday. This is from my man Mike from Michigan. Haven't heard from him in a while. He says, firstly, I'll be totally honest, Billy. Deontay Wilder is quite possibly the worst heavyweight champion I've ever seen next to John Ruiz. I fell asleep after the first round and awoke 3 hours later to Wilder getting a knockout. Well, you couldn't have done that because it wasn't 3 hours later, but I get your point. He says, so I rewatched the fight. I muted after the fifth time I rewatched it. He says, I still don't know what the F I watched. I got to give credit where credit's due. I give Deontay credit, and the only person who I believe, and I never thought I'd say this, is Fury. I don't know why, but Deontay Wilder may be the worst technical boxer that's ever lived. Marciano has had better footwork, and Marciano's nickname was Wire Legs. I'm afraid that people don't understand the fundamentals of boxing because I had Ortiz up on the cards each time. I have no clue how Wilder has had the success because he defies everything I've ever thought you need to be an elite level fighter except his power. What kind of good and kind of a good beard and heart. I was impressed with his actions as a human being after the Spitzka fight, which he was losing as well until he landed his bomb. We spoke about this afterwards, and that showed me a little bit of class. Also, is Deontay Wilder the worst heavyweight champion as far as skills go because he's got none? Remember the malice at the palace when Ron Artest started throwing shots at fans and he looked insane? That's what Wilder looks like to me, and I need to know what I'm missing. Lastly, the news broke yesterday, and I'm sick of the tainted meat BS. And I remembered Morales saying Mexico has the best pharmacies, but what the casual Canelo supporters left are back in the stupid tainted meat line. Billy, what TF, or WTF, I should say, is happening? I'm sincerely only honest, and I'm biased because I like humble guys like Triple G, but I'm able to admit it. And the first step is to be honest with yourself. I refuse the tainted meat BS, not solely attributed to just Mexicans either, by the way. He says, what about the bald heavyweight contender who was caught after knocking out Shagayev? He's talking about Lucas Brown. That's Australia. Others include Povetkin in Russia, Ortiz. I desperately want to know I want this to be untrue so I can watch Triple G beat Canelo easier this time. What's your guys' thoughts? First and foremost, I agree, and I've said this, that Deontay Wilder has, in my opinion, does not have any boxing skill. He's got terrible footwork. He doesn't employ the jab, which he should. He has a decent jab. He does have a decent jab. But he doesn't use it. So, his defense is not there. I gave you all the reasons why, technically, he's terrible. Except, here's the problem. The guy's got the equalizer. It's his right hand. That's all he's needed. He's 40 wins with 39 knockouts, all from the right hand. You could say, but he was losing up to that point, but he won, and he won by knockout. He was getting his ass kicked from this, but he won. He won by knockout. So the truth of the matter is you could be just as bad as Deontay is, but if you have the heart and you have a beard that can withstand some punches, and you have that equalizer, that right hand that puts people asleep, maybe that's all he's going to need. And that's, to compare him with Rocky Marciano is not that far off. Rocky Marciano,
he was losing against Jersey Joe Walcott.
Rocky Marciano was losing against Ezra Charles. They would have stopped that fight if it took place today. His nose was flopping around his face
it was cut in half.
It was. Let me tell you, Rocky Marciano, if he was fighting in today's boxing world, he would no way be undefeated because he would have gotten stopped by TKO several times by ringside physicians.
By today's standards.
But that's by today's. But like Rocky Marciano had terrible footwork. His defense, obviously, we're talking about all the fights that they would have stopped because he had no defense. He didn't really employ a jab. What he did do well was he had freakish punching power in both hands, and the guy was always in condition. He had great stamina, was always in condition, and had heart and punching power.
Heart and determination.
And guess what? Deontay Wilder showed us that same things, those same things on Saturday night. He showed us that he had heart. He showed us that he was in good condition, and he showed us that he had freakish punching power. And so far, it's working for him. Thanks for the email, Mike. And by the way, I know you're going through some tough times. Just get up off the canvas and win the fight. You know what I'm saying? This next one is from my man Morgan. He says, hey, Billy C. and Sal, one of the more interesting questions in boxing is when should a talented fighter with a long amateur background face a seasoned pro? Lomachenko versus Alito, Spinks versus Ali, etc. I've heard you mention that fighters need to climb the ladder before challenging for a championship. In a perfect world, you'd like to steadily increase the fighter's level of opposition, but what if he loses while climbing the ladder? Then he'd lose a chance at winning a championship, and more importantly, he'd lose a big payday. I don't believe boxers with a lot of amateur experience need many fights before challenging a contender. I'd like to see them fighting other good fighters before 10 pro fights. First and foremost, yes, in a perfect world, I'd like to see them climbing the ladder. And I don't think that the fear of losing should prevent the fighter from climbing a ladder. You see, the statement that Morgan just made in this email is reminiscent of what the mindset is of the younger fans. This guy already is putting value in an O, and he's concerned that a good amateur fighter will lose his opportunity to make money or even win a trinket, a belt, if he should lose on his way up. And that's the wrong mentality. There's nothing wrong with losing a fight if you get better from that loss. If you lose a fight and then never win again, okay, but then maybe somebody's doing you a favor. But if you lose a fight and go back and see why and correct those mistakes, it just made you a better fighter. Go through the history of boxing and you see that happen time and time again. As far as amateurs, Sal, we've had this discussion a lot of times. I think that there has to be an asterisk made for the Lomachenkos and for and Michael Spinks. Leon Spinks in his case, that's an asterisk because Leon Spinks, there was a lot of political things going on and with Ali, and make no mistake, to this day I believe that Ali just wanted to become the first heavyweight to regain the world championship 3 times, which he was able to do with the rematch with Leon Spinks. But when you got these huge amateur pedigrees like Lomachenko, like some of all the Cuban fighters, I do believe that they should get a fast track to being considered contenders. But that doesn't mean that they should be allowed to fight the same slugs that somebody who turned pro gets to fight. I think that if you are a highly decorated amateur, a guy with 200-300 fights, and you fought world-class competition, and you turn pro, I think that, you might be able to get a fast track to contention, but you still need to fight the contenders. What do you think, Sal?
Well, I think you're right on. Let's not forget that the amateur boxing is 3 rounds. So, I think when you look at a 10-round or a 12-round title fight, it's hard to fast forward and say, hey, my first or second fight, I'm going to fight 12 rounds. You have to have, at least in the order that should be specified, maybe a fast track. But, you might want to start out with your first fight as being an 8-rounder, 10-rounder, or something else, even against a contender or something, somebody ranked in the top 15. That's fine. But to suggest that you're going to fight for the title the first time, Lomachenko insisted, and basically he got that. It's a freakish thing, and I don't know how the heck you maneuver yourself in order to get that. But the bottom line is, not every fighter can or should do that. I think it's fair to say you have I'll use this as a benchmark because it was phenomenal. Look at all the Olympians from the '76 Olympics. They got on a fast track to a title fight, but they did it with their gold medals. They did it with fighting a level of increasing competition on their way up the ladder for the title fight. And Leon Spinks fought Ali in his 7th pro fight, I think it was. But look at Leonard. He moved up fast. They all moved up quickly because they were able to beat, in a natural progression, people that were experienced pros that would give them the next step up the ladder for a title.
Exactly. Listen, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, the second episode of Billy C's Magic Boxing Machine coming up right after this break. So don't go nowhere. We'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back. Part of the Billy C Boxing Network.
Snacking has never been this exciting. At Graze.com, we combine wholesome ingredients with the flavors we all love to create over 100 exciting snacks, like these. We'd love to send you a Graze sampler box for free. Just go to Graze.com, enter the code ENJOY36, and we'll mail your free box to your home or office. Join thousands of Grazers already in love with our exciting snacks. So come to Graze.com for your first box free.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt, the innovative technology to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
You know, similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Endless pools are an incredible alternative to traditional pools, making it easy and inexpensive to swim at home. Exercise year-round against a smooth current set to your desired pace and temperature. With our new underwater treadmill, you can walk or run without stressing your joints. Endless pools are simple to install and even simpler to maintain. The water stays crystal clear with almost no chlorine. Call for your free idea kit and experience the freedom of swimming at home.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you!
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. He may not have an Excellence in Broadcasting award, but the night's still young.
And he's got martinis.
So you never know what may be by morning. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us today. And, well, it's that time, man. We started a new segment. We got several more that I'm going to be unveiling over the next month or so. But this new one we had a lot of fun with. It's called Billy C's Magic Boxing Machine. And last time we did it, it normally puts all four of us, myself and Alex Papali and Dax Khan and Sal Rocky Senacola, all on at the same time. But due to the weather, Alex won't be able to join us today. So joining us today will just be myself and Sal and my man Dax Khan, who's with us right now. And Dax, I should have put you on the. I should have opened your camera shot so people could watch you looking over your shoulder. What do you got? What do you got? Ghosts in there? You think you got people sneaking up behind you, or are you being a good boy and checking to make sure you don't have a fight going on that TV, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
So people know what we're talking about. We got in trouble because Dax used to put a fight that was in the back over his shoulder. See that TV? He used to have a fight going on. And I got in trouble for that. Hey, you can't rebroadcast those fights, Dax. I can't even see what fights he's got on there. It's like whatever.
I think it was a video of me.
Yeah, well, that was a short-lived one. That was an easy one.
Sometimes the Skype video, I don't know, so sometimes it just doesn't come right, or it gets too wide or too close, depending on how that little HoloLens thing is working out. So that's why, I'm always looking at the surroundings on me in the camera.
Right. Well, what we got today, we got our new, and I got to get Jeremy to get us some. We need some intro music for the Magic Boxing Machine segment here. But what we got today, and like we do with our Blast from the Past, we like to get requests from you guys, the viewers and listeners. And we got a slew of Blast from the Past backed up, and we got a bunch of the Magic Boxing Machine requests too. And this one was a request that I believe not only did someone send Alex, but they sent you too. This one, right, Dax?
Yes.
Didn't you? They really wanted this one, and I got news for you. It's a great one. Today we're going to put Jack Dempsey, former world heavyweight champion and boxing Hall of Famer, in the ring with Evander Holyfield, who's also a former world champion and boxing Hall of Famer. Now, the way it's going to work today, because we don't have Alex, and I don't know what Alex's official prediction is, but Alex was kind enough via battery to run us the simulation. So I have those results, which I'll divulge later on. But right now, let me just give you a quick history on these two guys. And Sal's going to give us his reasons why this matchup would have been significant. And then Dax is going to get technical and break down the strength and weaknesses of both fighters. We'll give you our predictions of who would have won this fight. And then I'll tell you what the Title Bout Championship computer game said. First and foremost, we'll talk about Jack Dempsey. Personally, one of my favorite all-time fighters. He was a former world heavyweight champion and was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1990. He was 6'1", had a 77-inch reach. His record was 54 wins, 6 losses, 9 draws. He had a 283 rounds total with a 64% knockout ratio. Of his 54 wins, he knocked out opponents 44 times. Of his 6 losses, he himself was only stopped once. Now, he did, throughout his career, a lot of people remember the 2 fights with Gene Tunney, but he also had a couple of other fights with other fighters that seemed to have this long-lasting effect. And one guy specifically was Big Willie Meehan. And Willie Meehan kind of got the best of Jack Dempsey. They fought 5 times. Jack Dempsey only beat him once. He lost twice, and he had 2 draws. The thing I want to point out about Jack Dempsey is that most people, when they think of Jack Dempsey, they think of him being a smaller heavyweight. Oh, he only weighed 188 pounds, which is very true. His last several fights, he did weigh over 190, 194 against Jack Sharkey, 192 against Gene Tunney in his last fight. And a lot of other misconceptions about Jack Dempsey is that he fought mostly small guys during his era, which is not true. Big Jess Willard was 245 pounds, 6'6.5" tall. Fought him. Of course, Firpo was a big guy. Carl Morris was 6'4", 220 pounds. Porky Dan Flynn was a big guy. Willie Meehan, like I said, big guy. So he did fight some bigger opponents. Now, when you look at Evander Holyfield was a former 2-divisional world champion. He was a former cruiserweight world champion and a heavyweight world champion. Was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2017, last year. 6'2.5" with and arm reach of 78 inches. He had a 51% knockout ratio, 44 wins, 29 coming by knockout. He lost 10 times and had 2 draws. He was only stopped twice. One time against Riddick Bowe in their second fight in 1995, and the other time against James Toney in 2003, in which he was stopped. Now, as far as the size, it's eerily very similar. He weighed 226 pounds in his last fight, which was the biggest he ever weighed. That was against Brian Nelson in 2011. But when he turned heavyweight, he weighed 202 pounds against James Quick Tillis in 1988. And against some notable opponents, Bobby Chesney weighed 211, Ray Mercer 209, and he was up to 217 against Riddick Bowe. So he was very similar in size to Jack Dempsey. So what I'm going to do right now is just give you guys a little, I just gave you a little rundown of these 2 fighters. And I'm going to turn it over to Sal right now. And Sal, you tell us what the significance of these 2 guys, if we did have the magic boxing machine, why this fight would be so important.
Well, I think what it would prove, or what it would show us, is how a fighter from the old school, literally the kind of fighter that made his bones and did everything the way with chopping the wood, with doing the old school, versus the guy who contemporarily was introduced to vitamin supplements, nutrition. You're talking about Jack Dempsey, who was eating prior to the day. You believe that you had to eat a rare steak before you go in the ring, versus an Evander Holyfield who carbohydrate loaded on pasta or something else before they got in the ring. So you had two generations or two separate eras of where boxing and science came into play. And I think that Jack Dempsey, again, they had you want to talk about a track to the heavyweight title. Jack Dempsey didn't start out with the amateurs, didn't start out with gold medals, he started out in barroom brawls, needing money. He'd go in there and say, hey, who wants to try and beat me? Or I'm the toughest guy around. And he would take on all comers that thought that they could knock him out or beat him. And he rarely lost any of those fights. And then as it progressed along, he got recognized to having this freakish punching power and everything else. And someone said, hey, we're going to get you in a boxing ring and where you'll make some real legit money. And that was the natural path. Evander Holyfield, had the segue of the amateur program in the United States of America, winning state championships, winning national championships, or going to the Olympics. I think he won a bronze medal in the '76 Olympics. Correct me if I'm wrong or something. But anyway, then your natural introduction and progress in the pros. And with their training techniques, like I said, Jack Dempsey was a throwback. I saw training film of Jack Dempsey running up mountains or running up hills, chopping wood, running with a group of guys and shadow boxing and hitting the bag, just relentless with a style. Nothing pretty, just effective conditioning, raw conditioning. And then Evander Holyfield had the science and the level of contemporary nutrition guiding. And the science of stressing the body, resting the body, of breaking down muscle tissue, using machines like Nautilus, where weights were always banned. You shouldn't have a fighter use these machines or weights or so because it tightens your muscles up. Well, Jack Dempsey stayed away from them, but he would do the old things with lifting logs or rocks or chopping wood and building his strength raw like that. So you had the old school in Jack Dempsey versus the new school in Evander Holyfield. And not to say, but Evander Holyfield was kind of from the old school too, which was part of his foundation. So he did the things that were natural to older fighters, and that was his foundation. It wasn't until the contemporaries that said, hey, we could help you gain weight through nutrition and legal supplements, and we could do this. We could help your physical conditioning by putting you on this regimen or this machine, sprinting, doing intervals, doing things instead of just a jog. So it was interesting contrast in training styles, and to see which fighter would prevail out of one bout or 100 bouts would be an interesting test to see how significant the old school versus the new school.
Dax, both fighters had some strengths and weaknesses that would come into play in this. Tell us about those.
Well, the one thing that was the strengths and weaknesses would, again, be the era in which each guy was from. Despite the fact that both guys were relentless inside that ring, Evander Holyfield, his biggest strength was his come forward style, his incredible conditioning, and the fact that he was able to go in there and use that against bigger men like a Riddick Bowe or even a Lennox Lewis. And the fact that Evander Holyfield was able to wear guys down who were known for being harder punchers, like a Mike Tyson, let's say. Jack Dempsey, also who's known for being, this vicious puncher, like Evander Holyfield. If he had to dig deep, he would. As you mentioned before, Bill, Joe Brennan in Jack's second title defense. He's bleeding from the ear profusely, and he comes from and wins that 12th round knockout. So they're very similar in that stage. In my opinion, what would be the key though would also be the era. Which era were they fighting in? Were they fighting in the modern era where you had some sort of some more rules where you had that neutral corner where you weren't allowed to hit behind the head, there were no kidney punches, or was it going to be more or less the all-out style that Dempsey was used to when he first turned pro? And that, in my opinion, would really take effect on who the winner of this was, because Evander Holyfield, if you watched in a lot of his fights, despite the criticism that Evander used his head as the third arm, he really didn't like, to get into that down and dirty style despite the heart. But, Evander Holyfield definitely was a more technical boxer, but Jack Dempsey was more or less the guy, as Sal stated, who started his career, fighting inside of bar rooms. He's the guy that pretty much said, something, this is how it's going to be. If need be, we'll turn this into a boxing fight, boxing match later, but right now we're going to fight. And I'm not really sure if Evander Holyfield had that mentality, the fight mentality, despite the warrior heart. So that, in my opinion, is the most important thing about this fight. But Evander Holyfield, definitely the more key fighter, the more technical fighter, yet Jack Dempsey was definitely more the relentless fighter when it came to terms of viciousness.
Good point.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you my predictions, and we'll get the predictions from both Dax and Sal.
Oh boy!
And then I'm going to tell you
Here we go.
how the game, how Title Bout saw it. And unfortunately, like I said, Alex can't be with us today because he's by candlelight right now, and his batteries are all gone. So the storm has hit this Northeast pretty bad. But first and foremost, Evander Holyfield, I got to admit, I was never a huge Evander Holyfield fan. Maybe because I was more of a Mike Tyson fan. And I also met Evander several times, and he's not the nicest guy you ever want to meet. He's kind of mean. But with all that said, not that it matters, Evander Holyfield had the best recuperative powers I have ever seen in a fighter. This was a guy that the fight that sticks out the most for me was the George Foreman fight. George Foreman had him, knocked him across the ring. If any time I saw a fighter where the ropes held him up, not only did they hold Evander up, but he was like tangled in them too. And the time it took for all George had to do, it was like a Bugs Bunny film. All he had to do was blow on Evander, and he would have fallen down, and the fight would have been over. But the time it took Big George to plod across that ring to get to Evander, who was leaning up against the ropes, Evander already recovered, and the rest is history. Evander recovered quicker than anybody, and like Dax just said, he clearly had the better boxing style. This was a guy that was a technically sound fighter. And like Sal suggested, he took advantage of the modern training techniques. I remember watching footage of him training and building up his neck. One of the first things that they wanted him to do to be able to perform in the heavyweight division was have a strong neck muscles. And they worked on that relentlessly. And the results were proven. He going into this fight with Jack Dempsey, he would have a 1.5 inch reach advantage, and a 1 inch reach advantage and a 1.5 inch height advantage, which really doesn't come into play. I think Evander Holyfield would have been a guy that would try to have outboxed Jack Dempsey, but Jack Dempsey's style would have lured Evander into what anybody that was willing to exchange with Evander would get lured into, and that would be a toe-to-toe brawl. Jack Dempsey, that's what he liked the best. He was relentless. He was a guy that came in throwing punches crazily. He wasn't as refined of a fighter as Evander Holyfield. And as far as recovery power, not that he was hurt too often, but I don't think that he did have the recovery power of Evander Holyfield. I don't think the height or reach advantage that Holyfield had would have came into play. And I certainly don't think that Evander Holyfield's bigger size in terms of girth and weight would have come into play. Like I said earlier, Jack Dempsey has knocked out bigger guys throughout his career. How do I see this fight going? Well, I see this fight going exactly how most people probably do. I think Jack Dempsey will come out and make this a brawl. Evander Holyfield would love it. I think Jack Dempsey would drop Evander Holyfield a couple of times. I think Holyfield will drop Dempsey a couple of times. But I think in the end, which would win, and I think that an important factor is we look at these fights as if they would be happening today. And I think that if this fight took place today, Jack Dempsey would win this fight by a TKO. I think that his viciousness and the way he threw punches would cut up Evander, and it would cause a stoppage. If this fight took place back in the early 1900s and it was a fight to the finish, maybe I have a different opinion. But right now, with this magic boxing machine we have, I'm picking Jack Dempsey to beat Evander Holyfield by stoppage. Who wants to go next? Okay, Sal, you go next.
Okay. I would see this fight along the same strengths and weaknesses as you both have suggested. And, I would actually see that Jack Dempsey would go out there and want to have a brawl right in the middle of the ring as the two fighters met. And I think that what I would see, Bill, is that Evander Holyfield, as we also spoke of, would realize that he's got a puncher in front of him and he can trade and punch with the best of them. He has. But I think he would also look at the fact that, hey, I'm also a pretty slick boxer. I utilize the jab. I utilize certain things. I do feint. I do things. I'm going to try and move on the outside and pick them apart first off, and then we'll get into the brawl when I wear them down like a matador and a bull. So based on that kind of scenario, I would see if there was an initial fight, I would see that the fight that would take place would go just the way I just suggested. I think they would meet in the middle of the ring. Evander would assess the way it's going to go as far as them both exchanging and being toe-to-toe. And I think he would step back and assess where he is and try to box a little bit from the outside and pick apart Jack Dempsey. Can he do this over a 15-round period or a 12-round period, depending on what era they would fight, and have this relentless mauler coming at you at all times, taking your heart away? I think it would be a war. I think it would have been a hell of a fight. And I think when you look at two gladiators willing to put their life on the line and fight to the death and fight to the end, I think it would be a hell of a fight. I'd like to call it a draw.
Okay, we got Sal predicting a draw. Dax, what do you got, my man?
The first fight would be a draw. But I think Evander Holyfield, on his technical side, I think he would learn more from the first fight and apply it to the second, third, or fourth. But go ahead.
So I don't know. What do you decipher that Sal is trying to predict in this fight, Dax? Because I see him saying a whole bunch of nothing. He sounds like a Charlie Brown teacher. Wah 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 wah. Who are you picking to win the fight? I picked Dempsey. Who did you pick?
As I say, because of his superior conditioning, I would have to say Evander Holyfield. Remember, Evander Holyfield, again, I stress, he went in there with a Riddick Bowe, who's a very big guy, and he's, was a hard puncher, and he was a very solid boxer. Same thing with Lennox Lewis, who was an even a bigger guy and a harder puncher. And Evander Holyfield managed to go in there and take their best. Of course, you have to understand that this was those guys at their prime, and this was not the Evander Holyfield of when he lost to James Toney, or the Evander Holyfield who was losing to a lot lesser guys. And so, when you add those in, you add in the boxing ability. That's why I have to go with Evander Holyfield clearly. And not that Jack Dempsey wouldn't have his moments, but of course, Evander Holyfield, in the end, in my opinion, would come out on top. The most important and most intriguing part about this, real quick, that to me with this fight is, even though they seem like exact opposites, these guys have perhaps more in common than any other two heavyweights that I can think of over the past 100 years. They both, between their careers, involving politics. Jack Dempsey came in just after World War I ended. He was in here during the Roaring '20s. Evander Holyfield, he was the guy that everybody looked at, more or less as the idol, the hero of the world. It was even okay for countries that lost in World War I to sit there and look at this guy and say, you know what, this is the epitome of a man that, this is, a guy that we should aspire towards, because back then in Dempsey's era, he was the heavyweight champion. There was only one heavyweight champion. Evander Holyfield, the guy that, managed to, he was shorted in the 1984 Olympics. It was a time when Russia, Germany, and some of these other countries, they boycotted that, and Evander Holyfield, much like Jack Dempsey, had to fight his way up through and get this type of recognition, and do something different than everybody else of his era was doing, which was Evander Holyfield at the time came along when you had Mike Tyson, you had a Riddick Bowe, and that Bad Boy, because it was camp to be what defined him, not on the outside. The winner of this, in my opinion, would definitely be the guy who set the tone. If you took this fight and, you put it back and say the Dempsey era, or you put this in the 1950s, whoever came out ahead would actually be the guy that set the mold for the heavyweight champion, how we perceive the heavyweight champion. That's, the greatest position at one point in time in all of sports. The heavyweight champion, whoever owned that belt, was almost a mythological type character, a mythical, fictional type character. The only thing more mighty than the heavyweight champion might have been a Greek Titan or a fictional superhero like a Superman. So Jack Dempsey and Evander Holyfield both fit that mold perfectly, and despite being the exact opposites, the winner of this would actually decide exactly, what do you want out of the heavyweight champion? Do you want that quiet, reserved man who just always goes in there and he just takes care of business, he smiles to the camera, he shakes people's hands, much like a Joe Louis did, or even a Rocky Marciano, a man of few words, or Jack Dempsey, who was always inside that public light, a guy who always went out there and wore the clothes of the era, a guy who was always seen in the hottest night spots, the guy who was always seen with the most expensive bottles of wine. More or less, he was like a Mike Tyson in his years. More or less, he was like Max Baer. Which guy did you really want out there representing this sport and representing the world, the heavyweight champion of the world? And Evander Holyfield and Jack Dempsey, whoever came out on top of this, would actually set that and create that mold for every fighter afterwards. And every fighter after him wouldn't have to be sold like we see fighters nowadays have to be sold. They have to create these images. They have to be promoted. As long as you carried yourself like the winner of this fight, you would never have to be sold, and every fight you were in would be a pay-per-view blockbuster. You would actually be in every fight as if it was being promoted by Tex Rickard, and that's what the significance of this fight would be, in my opinion.
Phew. I was taking a breath for you. I don't know how you do it. You must have Dax's man. You're a good swimmer. Can you swim underwater? Pretty good, or what?
I think
so. Let me get this straight. The official predictions are: Dax, you're picking Holyfield. Sal, you picked a draw, and I'm picking Dempsey. So
unbelievable! Look at us, 3 different decisions from 3 different guys. I can't believe it.
This is good.
The odd part about that is, Sal, is every trivia question, your answer is Jack Dempsey.
Right. That's right.
You know what?
That's right.
Oh my God!
I forgot about. That's funny. That's funny.
That is so funny.
I forgot that.
I should have been so in tune to that. That should have been my canned answer to be.
Jack Dempsey.
Jack Dempsey.
You're right. I forgot all about that.
Dangerfield when he's when he's in the classroom back to school when
4
when he gives the answer, he's like 4.
All right, here we go. So we got Alex really went out of his way to run these simulations, and he's been out of electric since yesterday. So not only did he run it, but he got a hold of one of the powers that be from the title bout and had him run the simulations, and he did. Now, the way we do this is we do a one-time fight where we put them in and we get the initial result of the computer facing, having these guys face each other once, and then we put them in 100 times. So here is the results. For the first time, when Dempsey fights Evander Holyfield, my man, Jack Dempsey, wins by an 11th round knockout. He drops Evander once in the 9th and puts him on the deck 4 times in the 11th round. And Mills Lane was the referee in that fight, and he counted him out. Now, when they meet 100 times, Dempsey dominates. He wins 85 times, 14 times Holyfield wins. And Sal, who picked a draw along with somebody in the chat room, between these two fighters, 100 times, they had one draw. Holyfield scored 7 knockouts in his 14 wins. Dempsey scored 67 in his 85 wins. According to these guys, he says Dempsey totally hammered Evander Holyfield. And that's how the Title Bout Championship computer game sees this fight. We've all accepted how the computer does it. The one thing I will question with the computer guys, and I know we got to go, but the one thing I will question simply is the fact that Evander Holyfield was such a warrior. How did they have Dempsey just totally annihilating him so many times is beyond me. But it does show that Dempsey was a very talented fighter, and the misconception that everybody was so much smaller than him is not true. Real quickly, Dax, what did you think of the results from the computer?
Wrong ref. I don't know. How that came out. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm surprised how the game figured that out, or came up with that prediction. But I still stick with the fact that Evander Holyfield over the stretch would have won that fight.
Sal, what did you think of the results from the computer?
I could see the initial. I could see the initial fight, but I'm surprised with the 100 fights, because I would, like I suggested, I would think that Evander Holyfield could have learned a lot more from the first fight and would have applied what he learned throughout the rest of the fights they had.
I think what I was going to say real quick is, because we got to take a break, but what I was going to say is I think Coach just has the answer for us guys. The reason why I think the computer, and I agree with Coach, the reason why the computer has picked him, and the reason why I picked Dempsey, and I mentioned this, but I think that Coach is right. The willingness of Evander to stand and trade and Dax not utilize his boxing ability would have been to Dempsey's advantage. Holyfield was easy to coax into a brawl. And in this matchup, the computer stats show that Dempsey would have come out on top, and I agree with that. I agree I
could see that now.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I agree with Coach that if Evander Holyfield, because all three of us got to agree that Holyfield had the better boxing ability, right?
Yes.
I think so.
That's what I thought he would utilize. Yes, that's why I gave him the majority.
Well, you picked a draw.
No, but a majority afterwards. I thought he would win more.
But afterwards, after he heard the answer, he's typical. You know what?
He took those punches from Bo. He took the big right hands from Lennox Lewis. Riddick Bowe, a harder puncher than Jack Dempsey, and Riddick Bowe hit him a lot, not just once or twice. And Lennox Lewis, that right hand of his, when Lennox Lewis landed that big right hand, may have been the hardest single right hand in the history of all of boxing. So Holyfield was able to stand up to that during his prime. I don't see Jack Dempsey wearing Holyfield down, and I definitely don't see Jack Dempsey stopping Holyfield with one single punch.
Well, let me tell you this though, I think that Dempsey's volume of punches was way more than Bo or Lennox Lewis or any of those guys. But I do agree that the all-out power, the one-punch power, you got to lean towards the bigger guy than Dempsey. But his windmill attack may have gotten the best. But guys, another great job.
And again, the error. That's the important part. Which error were they fighting in?
Well, if Mills Lane was the referee, they were in more of a modern era. But
Mills Lane, 150 years old.
That's right. We always wondered how old he was. Dax,
you imagine Mills saying, "Let's get on."
We're going to take a short break, fellas. Dax, thanks a lot, and I look forward to the next one. Don't go anywhere. We will be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back. Part of the Billy C Boxing Network.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
You know, similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you. I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
Oh, that's my cue, right? Oh, yeah. And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. We just got done with our second episode of Billy C.'s Magic Boxing Machine, and it was a good one. And I had a comment. Somebody was in one of the chat rooms telling me, oh, well, Vander is too big, much bigger, and blah, blah, blah. But he's not. I did all of the stats, so go back and listen to the first part of that segment, and you'll see, because I pointed out he only had an 1.5 inch height advantage, and as far as weight, he averaged maybe 10 pounds heavier than Dempsey, so the size was not going to make a big difference in that one. But what a great matchup that would have been, Sal. But anyway, we got a couple of more emails. You ready?
Yes, sir.
The politician, Sal Rocky Senecola.
Hey, man.
They're calling you Sal Reagan. They're calling you Sal Reagan in the chat room. But
well,
we got
there you go again.
Yeah, we got a couple from my man Mitch, and he says, "Hey Billy C, tell your friend who emailed you the other day that Wilder had been down a couple of times in his pro career, that it's actually won officially." He says, in a fight, you'll see Dustin Nichols appear to land a punch. You have to stop right when it happens to see it graze him, and Wilder went down, but it was ruled a slip. He says, but the real fight when he was down was with Harold Sconiers. Every time someone posted on YouTube, someone has it removed. He got caught, dropped, and was almost out in the second round. Wilder dropped Harold in the first. Harold dropped him really hard in the second. The thing about the knockdown is that Harold hits about as hard as the heavyweight version of Chris Bird. He's feather-fisted. He'll have time to buy a copy of the fight from someone to see it, but when he does, he'll understand that both Wilder and AJ have their share of flaws that can be exploited, and either one of them can go out at any point when they fight, which I agree with. He says Sconers had him gone. He says, I am definitely ordering that fight. He says the PBC is going WWE. He says Ortiz said he just so happened to see Wilder at his fight, so he called him out in the ring in front of the crowd. That was the WWE move to set up the Wilder-Ortiz fight several months back. He says then Sean Porter, a guy who's been classy his entire life, steps out of character and jumps into the ring to talk smack to Danny Garcia. If it was anyone else but Sean Porter, I'd say okay. But it seemed totally awkward because of his usual classy demeanor. Next up, look at Jacobs and Charlo. Now Broner is calling out Thurman. Had Al had them do this WWE stuff from the beginning, and cut the meaningless Bounce TV and Fox Sports 1 fights out, maybe the PBC would have had something at this point. But he waited until all the other people's money ran out, and now we have his desperate move to go WWE on everyone. Sad thing is, the young boxing demographic are falling for it. You know, Sal, I can't agree more.
I know.
They do seem to fall for that. You know, it's like when you get into the conversation with a young kid about, professional wrestling, and, they look at you with seriousness in their eyes, believing that it's real. And, we know that that's not the case. And boxing is taking a turn to WWE. Now, I'm not suggesting that the fights themselves are predetermined. I don't want to believe that. I never hope I ever think that. But leading up to that, and all the he said, she said, and all the ways that they're trying to sell tickets is 100% WWE. And what bothers me about that is people are so quick to tell me, Sal, that they're just copying Ali. Ali did it. But the difference, like you and I have said, is Ali backed up what he said he was going to do. The guy would say, I'm going to do this and do that, and tried his damnedest to make it happen. These guys say all kinds of stuff and do nothing of the sort. Nothing. What's your thoughts?
Well, I share a lot what you're saying there, and I will tell you, it surprises me. It still shocks me when I see how these fighters are coming into the ring. It's almost like, they're putting on a show with different costumes and outfits. One's an executioner, one's this and that. It almost looks, I don't know, it just looks bizarre. I mean, boxing, what I loved about boxing, it's one of the oldest, rawest sports there could be. And now when you see the fighters marching into the ring with all the music or the hoods or the masks and the capes and this and that, it's entertainment, and I know that. I know that's what they're going for and everything else, and the shock value and everything else. But it's just hard for me to really see, because it does mimic a little bit of the WW Wrestling Federation,
Well, I tell you the truth. I know what you're saying. But the ring walk and the ring entrances have always been somewhat extravagant. Yeah. I mean, Hector Macho Camacho. I mean, nobody was better than Prince Hassim Hamed. I mean, he had the best. When he came in on a magic carpet, I mean, that was the best. But I tell you, Jorge Arce came in. He rode a horse to the ring once, sucking on a lollipop.
I'm talking about, the old school or my generation. You see fighters coming with the hoods over there, with their robe over their heads, coming in, just marching to the beat and walking up into the ring or with a little trot, and that's it. And then, like you said, now it's a WWE. You have Prince Ahmed on the flying carpet. You got Hector Camacho with all kinds of fanfare, or whatever it was, and I mean, it's not taken away. I don't say it's bad in any way, shape, or form. It's entertainment. It's shock appeal. It's a lot of things. But what it also reminds me of was your question. It mimics a little bit of the WWE for me.
Right. No, I got you. Listen, I don't mind the ring walks. I don't care. They can get as extravagant as they want. But what bothers me, what bothers me is when they say, I'm going to do this. Oh, when I get you in the ring, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. Blah, 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 and then they run. This is going to be a war. It's toe-to-toe. I'm knocking him out. Somebody's getting knocked out. And then they dance around and hug each other for 12 rounds. And then hey, I did my best. Where's my participation trophy? That's the part that I don't. But as far as the ring walks and stuff, hey, more power to them. I mean, they got rappers coming down doing a live performance on their way out. Hey, in Germany, they what was it? They had a Triumph. I think Triumph was a German band. And they would have them playing, a rock and roll band, playing in between rounds, and for ring walks, they were live doing a performance down there. So I'm okay with that. In Canada,
I'm okay with it. But in Canada, I think it reminds me of WWE.
Right. In Canada, they have the girls dancing in between rounds. it's kind of, they have these gorgeous girls a lot of times dancing in a cage, right? And
oh my God! Almost like what was that football movie with Keanu Reeves? I love it. Gene Hackman called The Replacements with the cheerleaders.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, you're watching a fight. In between rounds, these girls would be raised up, and they're dancing. They're go-go dancing in like a cage, and you can't they're so hot. You can't even not pay attention to them. And then all of a sudden they go down, the lights go up, and oh, that's right, I'm at a fight. I'm at a fight. I thought I was at a strip club, But anyway, you got to go to Canada. If you've never been to Canada for a fight, go to specifically Montreal. Go to Montreal. But anyway, another email. This one's from Joel. He says, hey, Billy C., I was curious about your and Sal's opinion about Josh Kelly, the 2016 Olympian, facing former title holder Carlos Molina on the Anthony Joshua Joseph Parker undercard. There's also speculation of Carlos Takam potentially fighting Derek Chisora next, which is an interesting fight, even though I feel at this stage Takam will soundly beat Chisora. What's your thoughts? We were just talking about this earlier. Josh Kelly was a successful Olympian last year, or actually the year before now. And they're testing him early. This is something different that I like in Europe that they don't do in the U.S. Basically, they don't have the you-know-whats in the U.S. because also of a comment from an earlier email, everybody's afraid to get that loss. They think they're going to lose value. This is why specifically English boxing has taken over the sport, because the fighters are more willing to fight. They're more willing to take chances. They're more willing to risk things. And as they've proven to us, it does not hurt their careers or their financial situation. It does not hurt. It may appear to hurt, but it really doesn't. All you got to do is look at Deontay Wilder. Made his first $2 million payday last week against Luis Ortiz in his first real fight. And Anthony Joshua, who we always seem to be comparing those two, has made, $20 million already, and he's got, like Sal pointed out, half the fights. So, who's doing better? Come on. If you're going to weigh out the money, which I don't like to do, who's doing better financially? Who's taking more risk? I don't care if you're fighting the milkman. When you get in that ring, you're taking a risk. So the truth of the matter is, that old saying, risk versus reward, you're better off making the bigger money for less fights than fighting 5 fights to equal that kind of money that you could have made in 1 fight. It makes no sense, because especially in the heavyweight division, it could happen anytime. I don't have a problem with Josh Kelly, who, by the way, in my opinion, is the real deal, of fighting Carlos Molina. It's a tough fight, but you'll get a good feel on where Josh Kelly as a pro is right now. As far as the speculation of Carlos Takam fighting Derek Chisora has become that guy. He's become the guy that is a gauge to test. And I think that what that fight is going to do, because Carlos Takam has already been around for a while, and the truth of the matter is that he doesn't need a gatekeeper, so to speak. But what I see in that particular fight is, if it happens, I see the potential of the winner getting another fight to move on, and the loser maybe hanging him up. That's what I see in that fight. 2 guys that are seemingly close to the same level. And let's not forget, Carlos Takam went the distance. Oh, no, did he go to distance? Oh, no, they stopped it. But he was doing pretty well against AJ in AJ's last fight. And again, Sal, this was something I pointed out earlier on this show. AJ didn't have experience fighting a shorter guy. Remember how much shorter Carlos Takam was? He had trouble with that guy.
Absolutely. And let me tell you, I from my own experience, I love fighting, and I look forward to fighting anybody taller than me. I mean, whether it was 6 inches or almost a foot, I didn't care. I only had trouble when I would once in a while fight a guy my size or shorter. So you made a good, valid point, and I could see that being something that, when you're not used to it, you adjust and you adapt your style. Yeah, you got to start sparring, you got to start hitting guys. And getting your range on a whole nother style of fight. A fighter that's shorter than you, or you're a fighter that's taller than you, or a fighter your own height.
When these guys, especially in the heavyweight division today, when you got a guy that's 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", Tyson Fury 6'8", you got guys that are that big.
Unbelievable.
And they're fighting, heavyweights that are monsters compared to me and Sal and most people when they're 6'2", 6'3", even 6'4". He's a monster. He's a guy that I'm looking up to, and they step in the ring, and these fighters are actually punching downward at a 6'4" guy, and all of a sudden you put him in against a 6-foot guy where they have 6, 7, 8 inches on him. You got to throw your punches differently. Then all of a sudden you're in the ring with a guy the same size as you. The jab. Tyson Fury used to throw his jab from way down by his waist, and he had to change that because as he started moving up with the level of competition he was facing, he started seeing that the guys he was facing were bigger. And if he continued to throw his jab from the point at which he was in the beginning of his career, other fighters today would be nailing him before the jab even reached their target. And that's a lot of concern I have for Deontay. Going back to Deontay, Sal, with his lack of boxing skill, at some point it's going to catch you. You would think it's going to catch up to him at some point. The question is, are there any heavyweights aside from Anthony Joshua that would test him? That's the $1 million question.
Absolutely, no, that's a good point. And it's just like, I used to love, as you did too, Mike Tyson, because he was a shorter heavyweight and he fought like a smaller heavyweight. He bobbed, he weaved, he was explosive, he was on the inside, he was doing all the right things, and he had no problem with taller guys up until the end, But I mean, in his early pathway in early years, he was relentless, and he dismantled and did whatever he had to do, but. There's not too many other fighters that Mike Tyson had to face that were his own size.
No, that's a good point. And Mike Tyson's not that big of a guy.
5'10", 5'11", right?
Well, they say 5'11". When I was with him at the Turning Stone,
5'9" and a half.
I swear to God, I didn't seem that much bigger than me. I would bet he's 5'10" at the most.
Yeah.
But
Marciano, same thing.
Anyway, listen, I got 2 more emails that I won't get a chance to read today. One from the return of the other Alex. We got an email from my man Alex T. and my man Johnston. So we'll get to you guys tomorrow. So don't worry. If you take the time to write us an email and send it to me, Billy@TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com. I'll take the time to read it on air. So make sure you do that. And speaking of making sure, make sure you tune in tomorrow morning. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.